Hey guys, Omar here. I feel like I'm a little bit of a dinosaur, considering that I started my channel talking about the Fujifilm X-T20 back in 2017. 2, which is a little bigger, versus the X-T20, which is smaller. And what's crazy is the newest camera that I own, the newest Fujifilm camera that I own, is the X-T2. So to convince myself that I'm doing the right thing, this video is the top reasons why older Fujifilm cameras, the elderly, are better than the new ones. This is for all you vintage Fujifilm owners out there like me. So the first one, I wrote, they're in stock. So the newest cameras, it seems like Fujifilm's having a little bit of a problem, keeping up with the demand. And if you go through, at least the big retailers, you'll see that a lot of them are out of stock. But used Fujifilms are always in stock. The second reason used Fujifilm cameras are better than new ones are you're poor. You're on a budget. You need a camera and you just want to play around with it and you're afraid it might get stolen or something. A used camera that costs probably half or a third of the price is probably a better idea. Number 3, I'm helping the environment. That's right. Instead of new packaging and new plastics and new whatever, I just stick with the old. I don't get rid of this until it breaks. Please don't break. Ironically, this is my favorite Fujifilm camera and the one I've shot least. I actually I shot this camera 2 years ago, which is crazy. I was looking at my EXIF data when I was going through the photos. I do need to go out and shoot. I mean, this camera is just so beautiful. This is the X Pro 2 Graphite Edition. And I feel like I've become a Fujifilm collector. I seem to have one body type of each. I have the X Pro 2, the X-T20, the X-T2, XH1, which again, I bought for this channel so that I can make a video on it, and it's just collecting dust. We also have the XE2, and there is one that's missing from the collection that I'm waiting for Fujifilm to re-release. All right, number 3, I put X-Trans something something. The newer cameras have beautiful colors, clean, correct colors. They just look fantastic. But maybe you don't want that. Maybe instead you like the X-T2 and X Pro 2, and those guys have pretty good colors too. But if you get a little older, like X-T1 or XE1, XE2, the colors are totally wrong. But there's a little charm to that. Now, the next one's kind of debatable. It might be in my head. Maybe you know a little bit more than me, and I could only figure it out if they were if all the generations were on a table and I got to play with all of them. But I feel that the older cameras like this X Pro 2 are maybe a little bit more robust and a little less plasticky, which is not, we give plastic a bad rap, but like plastic used well makes the cameras lighter. People complain their cameras are heavy. Companies make them lighter. We complain about the plastic. But I feel, sometimes you feel it through the dials, how they turn, and each person is different. But I feel that if, the dials are very stiff and, they have like a good feel to them, that just gives you like a sense of quality and workmanship and all that stuff. Now, it depends on what line of Fujifilm camera you're using. For example, the XA line from a couple of years ago, that one is very plasticky because it's on a lower budget, a lower price point. But like the X100s are built very premium. The X Pro line is built very premium. The recent release XM, which I love that camera. That camera is great and small, but to me feels very plasticky compared to the other Fujifilms I have. So I wouldn't give up any of these Fujifilms for that smaller, newer camera with newer features. Okay, you see that? You see that right there, guys? You see that right there? Again, another debatable one. The older cameras were made in Japan. And even the most recent X100VI was the first X100 that production was, moved over to China. Now, it makes sense for Fujifilm to make the cameras in China because, labor's cheaper and parts are cheaper. But it's weird. It's anything that's made in China has like the stigma around it as being like, mass produced and lower quality, while anything made in Japan has like prestige and workmanship. And, so that is maybe something that has changed because Fujifilm, of course, their China factories, they must have the same quality control. They must have the same parts that as if they were making them in Japan. They could just upscale production. Cameras are still sold out everywhere, but it is nice to see, I will admit, made in Japan on some of the cameras that I own, like the X-T2 and the X Pro 2. And this one, I don't think this one, the X-E2 was made in Japan. Look at that. However, the camera I started this channel with, the X-T20, is made in China, and it's been working out great. Still going. This is my noir camera. By the way, I think the GFX line is the only camera line that is being currently produced in Japan. All other cameras are being outsourced to other countries. Yeah, just fun fact. Number, I lost track. I think this is 5, but as we say here in New Jersey, buttons. That's right, people, buttons. We got a lot of buttons here. We got a lot of buttons. And I think the perfect example is this X-E2 compared to the modern cameras. And the one that started the demise for me personally was the removal of the D-pad, which began in the X-T30 or the X-E4, I believe. No, X-E3 was the first one that they got rid of the D-pad and you started to have to navigate with the little joystick. So that one, to me personally, look at all the buttons on this X-E2. It really was, to me, a shocker, the X-E4 camera. If you look at that one versus this one, that really kind of just exemplified the direction that Fujifilm was taking, even in their GFX line, in which they removed the D-pad and tried to make the cameras simpler, more streamlined. That's all well and good, but as far as like a working camera goes, it's great if you memorize like an instrument where you can change all the settings without having to dive in the menu. It's always nice when a button is just right there and button makes the change. Now, before you go and run out and get an older Fujifilm, let's talk about why the older cameras are worse. But before we do that, in the comment below, if you're a vintage Fujifilm user, tell me why the older cameras are better. If you want to add to my list or agree with my list, do that right now in your face. Okay, just to end negative, I put a couple of why they're worse. The number one reason why they're worse is battery life. The newer Fujifilm cameras have a better battery, and that is just such a welcome change. I always have to carry three-ish batteries, which isn't the biggest deal. And by the way, you vintage users out there, you should know that if you have your camera for a long time, like 8 years, those original batteries don't hold the charge as well. So some of us are complaining about battery life, and it could be battery life. The next reason you might not want a vintage camera is that the newer cameras have newer film simulations that you can't find in the older ones. Now, the newer cameras do have newer features that you won't find in the older cameras, like subject detection auto, like bird and airplane. You airplane shooters out there. You won't find that in these cameras. So that I find that with the older cameras, I just use them as if they were like film cameras. Single focus point, sometimes manual focus, like this cool Zonlai lens right here on the Fujifilm X-T20 Noir that I have. So it's fun to shoot that way. So newer features on the newer ones you won't find in the older. Now, if you're into making your own recipes, the older cameras are a little tougher to do that with because they don't save your white balance. And a lot of the cool film recipes have a white balance shift of some kind. So this like XT20 here won't save that custom white balance, which is a shame. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.